Teams argue about colour like it's personal. I like blue, I like green, can you make it pop?
But your favourite colour doesn't matter if your audience doesn't respond to it. Colour changes what people feel, what they notice, what they trust, and what they do next.
Welcome to ThinkShift, the podcast where neuroscience meets business.
Today we're unpacking why colour drives behaviour, not as a design trend, as a decision signal. If you're building a brand or designing a website, you might want to stay tuned.
Hey, Clint.
Hey Leanne, how you going?
Yeah, good.
Good to see you this morning.
Check out the hat.
Check out the hat. Neurodesign merch.
Yeah, that's right. Last episode I had on my T-shirt. You've got your hat.
Oh, it's all coming together.
It's good. Looks really good.
Well, we didn't talk about our ThinkShift sign, by the way.
Oh, my
front of
God.
us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So you guys listening?
Everyone loves a neon.
Oh, no, we love it, Neon. Anybody's listening, you need to go over to the video so you can check this out. I mean, first of all, yeah, check out the hat. That's awesome.
Now taking orders.
Yeah, that's right. I know we're thinking about possibly doing some merch down the track when we go viral, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's in minutes away.
Yeah. Now that we had at the time of recording this, I think we had close to around 30 subscribers. I am dying to get that to 50.
I thought you were going to add a zero then. So we're close to 1,000.
I don't know. That will be, hopefully that will be soon. But we're going to try and get to 50. So you guys, if you're listening, just hit subscribe so we can. And when we'll shout out to you guys as well for subscribing and joining the ThinkShift community. But check out the neon sign.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
All right.
That's good.
Okay, so let's jump straight in. Let's talk about the science behind colour and behaviour.
Well, how appropriate, right? How appropriate
Yes.
with the colours of our our brand and ThinkShift.
Yeah.
The pink that pops.
The hot pink that pops. Okay, so colour isn't about what you like. It's about what your audience feels, notices, and does next. So, Leanne, what does colour do to the brain before we even read a word?
So colour acts as a psychological trigger. So we can actually come up with a story by looking at a colour or colours before we even read any text. So it creates an emotional response, which is really important. And we start giving something context and we start to make a decision before we start reading. And it's almost like we read the text to justify what we think the colour has provided.
What we've felt
And
emotionally.
what we felt emotionally, yeah.
Interesting. And how fast is that? Is that like a really quick, when you land on a website and there's the colour involved, like how fast do we interpret?
We're talking milliseconds.
Milliseconds.
Yeah, and a lot of it is subconscious too. So we'll get this subconscious feeling. So when we're born and we have these subconscious and collective unconscious traits, there are certain colours, noises, like things that we see, noises, memories, patterns that colour creates and evokes some kind of response. So even though colour is just visual, as far as we know, science shows that it actually creates and stimulates other senses as well. Certain colours create taste, certain colours evoke memories and feelings. So colour is extremely important in the way that we process information and from creating trust, safety, which is the brain's first, the purpose is to create a safe environment for us. And we can quickly make a decision if we need to run for the hills before we read anything, and that's really important.
An emotional response.
Emotional response.
Okay, and just on the speed component, I'm going to mention a study here by Satyendra Singh back in 2006, and the year is really important because 20 years ago, she found that we form judgment around products within 90 seconds, and up to 90% of it's based on colour alone. But 90 seconds, it'd be much quicker now, yeah? Like 2026,
we're talking 10 seconds. Yeah, around 10 seconds. Yeah, that's the sort of the average now, just looking at, studies around the brain response and the triggers and this response and the activity of the brain when we see colour.
Yep.
We also have technology to be able to now that very different. I mean, 20 years ago, it is a long time, and technology and especially in medicine and science, develops at the rate of knots. So back then, fMRI, which is a functional MRI, which is a device that can actually, you can stimulate the brain and look at activity.
Did they exist back then?
MRIs did, absolutely. Functional MRI, not really, and it was in its infancy. Even if it was around, I'll have to check the facts. But we didn't have a way of understanding the brain and how it operated at the speed that it operated when it was stimulated by certain things. We can actually see that now, and we actually use that technology to come up with information around behavioral science responses, emotional responses, and triggers. So definitely we now know that there is some kind of response that we see within nanoseconds, let alone then down the track when we form an opinion or form some kind of context, which is within around 10 seconds. But we look at a website and within 3 seconds we've made a decision. And a lot of that contributes to seeing colour. But then we do a full understanding at around 10 seconds.
Okay, so colour becomes so important for business decisions in driving that emotion. So people attach colour to identity and taste. Founders confuse their preference with audience response, which I think is a really key thing, right?
Yeah.
It can be so easy for you to get caught up in your own Kool-Aid and your own self-preference. But you've got to remember you are not your audience. But let's talk about that later. Mm-hmm. My next scientific-based question is, what is the relationship between colour and arousal?
So we associate colour with risk, with warnings, with danger. The particular colours, red is often used in that instance. We then associate other colours like calm, safety, security, kindness and care also actually around other colours. Blue is a very calming and a very sort of scientific and clinical, hygienic colour. Safe colour, which is why we see a lot of, medical and as finance companies and brands using that as potentially a primary colour in their branding. So certain colours do evoke a neurochemical response, cortisol or oxytocin or dopamine, depending on how we're stimulated.
Yep.
So we are aroused, and it can be a positive arousal. It can also be a negative arousal, because even though arousal is normally positive, but it's a negative response.
Yep.
So that it gives us an ecosystem or a context of how we should behave. What should we do next? And that's why when people talk about corporate identity and they talk about branding, I don't believe, from a neuroscience perspective, that people take their colours as seriously as they should. Often it's a colour that I like. If something like orange creates a response and you can't even look at it because it's something that it
tied to
creates.
A past trauma, maybe?
Yeah, tied to a past trauma. You're clearly feeling uncomfortable. You're not going to make your brand orange. It still needs to be something that is suitable for you. However, it's not all about you. In fact, most of it is not about you. It is about your audience behaviours and what they are expecting to see. The brain loves shortcuts. We talk about that. What is the brain's expectation? Often with medical companies, we're expecting to see something calming and safe.
Yeah.
If we saw a medical company, and it does happen, there are those out there that are a yellow or a red, there needs to be a good reason why.
Seen as a bit more progressive, maybe.
Maybe.
But it's interesting, though, and I think this is where context is missed. We talked about context a lot, actually, in our previous episode on AI, and context matters even more when it comes to colour. And if we look at red as a primary example, red being used, it can denote passion, energy, if used in terms of, matchmaking, romance. If we look at the heart on our Think Shift channel, the heart to like something is a red heart. It's red. If it was a blue heart, we'd be like, why is it blue? So context really matters. And I think that's useful, particularly when deciding upon brand color sets, is that what is the context? What is the market? What is the vertical that your business thrives in? Now let's look at colors that associate with that. And if you're going to make a conscious decision to go against those colors, just have a really good reason as to why. Like form a story around that as to why suddenly your finance brand is, red. And instead of just going with it and going, oh, I made it red because everyone else was blue. It's like, no, that's not good enough. It needs to be a real reason for it. Okay, so the key takeaways here is that color isn't decoration. It's a behavioral cue, when I can say that correctly. It shapes what people feel before they read a word. It helps signal trust, urgency, safety, energy, risk, a whole bunch of emotions, right? So the starting point should never be personal taste. It's your audience, the category, and the desired action you want that audience to take. Ask what do you need people to feel, notice, and do next. They're the primary color purposes. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to Think Shift on all the social channels to be kept up to date when the next shift lands in your inbox. So let's move on to what color means in brand and marketing. So a color palette is not just a visual choice, as we just mentioned. It tells people what kind of business they're dealing with. When do you think, using a bold or unusual color help?
So firstly, you need to be brave and you need courage to be able to do it. But when it creates distinctiveness or salience. So, for instance, we're talking about a medical company or financial company that's generally blue. If something is say orange or it is red, why? There has to be a reason behind it.
Yeah.
So it certainly is is distinctiveness. I mean, even I'm thinking about my own brand for LEC. I mean, looking at what I do in neuro, very scientific based, and even the same with you. There's a bright pink in there.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a reason behind that, and it's also because it's a corporate identity for me,
Aligns personality.
and it aligns with personality, and
Archetype.
it aligns with my archetype. And we'll touch on archetypes here a little bit, but we are going to do an actual episode on that because that is something that I get asked a lot about. But it's. You need to own the colour. If it's something that is bold or something that is unusual, there needs to be a reason and you need to own that. So what is it that you do differently that characterises that different colour for your particular industry?
Yeah. And I'm going to lead into this next one with talking about a colour choice if it feels immature for a serious decision.
Yeah.
That's a big no-no, right? So trust erodes quite quickly when those colours are directly opposed to the decision they're being asked to make. So let's talk about that. When can colour choice damage trust? What are your thoughts?
Colour needs to align with your purpose and it needs to align with the context. And it also needs to be able to create readability. So is it something that is distracting? Is it something that is blurring the message? Is it muddying the waters? If it's not aligned with the business or not aligned with the person within the business or the corporate identity or the professional identity of the business, then it can actually backfire. And that's why when we talk about, it's not just about your favorite color and the preference. It's getting someone who is professionally trained, potentially in color psychology in particular, that can work with you for your corporate identity and your brand identity, because color is the first thing people see. And we create a response, we create a decision, we make a decision and we build a behavior around that before we even read the text.
That's right.
And there has to be an alignment there. So that what we're trying to evoke is a positive neurochemical response, of oxytocin or dopamine that makes us feel safe and go, this seems good.
Yeah.
This is aligned. This is safe. Makes sense. And that's what we want to do. So it actually is really important from a brand perspective, and it's not just around branding. Your entire profile and identity around that's really important to make sure you're choosing the right color for the right reason. You don't just pick a color out of a hat.
Particularly, I see when it affects readability for the user.
Yeah.
Quite often you'll see yellows and all sorts of bright colors that create a problem with visual contrast. Readability goes out the window. And there's a brand that does this really well, though, that has yellow in their palette, and I was going to call them out. It's CommBank. CBA does a great job of using yellow in their comms. I'm a CommBank customer. I have their app on my phone. It's probably one of the best bank user experiences I've seen. And the yellow is their primary brand color. But they limit the use of it in such a way that it doesn't damage the readability of the application. And it's one of the most effortless apps I have on my phone. So there is a way to use those.
But it's a strong yellow, right?
It's a very strong yellow. It's not a light pastel. Yes, correct.
Depth to the yellow.
Yep.
And also in color psychology, for those of you that are interested in what yellow is about, clarity is what yellow generally brings. Clarity, cleansing, sort of freedom, that quite often yellow is used in those kinds of aspects and those kinds of businesses. So it's interesting with CommBank that they've used that colour. And it is the CommBank yellow. Like it's actually a patented colour now, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I think it is. I think it is the CommBank yellow.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Large swathes of yellow, though, can be nauseous.
Yes, can. Correct.
Yeah, which is interesting in itself.
Yeah, so using too much yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to remember, CommBank is yellow, black and white.
Yes.
So let's just
That's right. It's not just yellow.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's concurrently used with a very bold color that is stable. I mean, it might not even be black. It might be like a really dark grey. I'm not sure exactly, but it's stable. It's rigid. It's supportive.
Yeah.
So it's always got that as the crux and to then complement the yellow, and then there's some white in there as well.
I mean, that's the importance of primary and secondary, tertiary colour decisions and the breakdown and percentage of use within any application. Why that's so important.
Yeah.
CommBank's not going to go, it's 100% yellow and then use a little bit of black.
No, that's right. I mean, think of, neurodesign. I mean, neurodesign, we've got that coral, we've got the pink. Imagine if the whole thing was coral. It's
coral
not.
Pink.
It's a gorgeous colour, but it's a call to action. It's a lovely colour, but it's an accent colour.
Yeah.
We've got that navy and that deep purple, and we've got that accent colour to uplift, and we've done that on purpose.
That's right. It drives a decision and makes it very easy for a user to know what to click, because now they're looking for a pattern. They're looking for coral because they know that's a call to action. We haven't given them 3 or 4 different colours at any time and said, click the blue one, click the black one, click the, that's very clear what they need to do next because it's driving decisions.
Correct.
All right. Let's move on to an outlier here in the colour space. Let's talk about MasterCard. So MasterCard uses red and orange interlocking circles to symbolize connection.
It's like a Venn diagram, isn't it?
It is, but they say in their justification that red signifies energy and passion. But if you look in history of financial brands, anything to do with finance, red is a big no-no because it means bankruptcy.
Yep.
You're in the red, debt.
Yeah, debt,
so
risk.
What do you think about MasterCard using red in their brand mark?
Well, very interesting. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday when we were doing research for this episode. We were looking for the outliers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do, right? That's how we operate. And it was very interesting because it's got the orange, the sort of that orange and the red with it, which is, warning, and but it stands out.
It does.
It stands out. And the justification around, the passion and desire and maybe relationship with your money.
Yes. And innovation is the other thing.
Innovation, which was the orange, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The innovation, so which is great, and that's what orange does mean. But interesting with the red, and they've intertwined it in like looking like a Venn diagram. Where
Must have been a really convincing pitch deck, as I could say.
Absolutely.
The design
to take
agency
that to the board and to take that to the board meeting and to say this is what we think, they're probably going, you've gone bananas.
Yeah.
But no, and we don't look at MasterCard as, oh my God, I'm going to be into. It is a money lending institution, and it's credit card, and a lot of people are in debt, and that's a shame. But that's not what this is about. This is about using the colour and branding for purpose, and they are an outlier, but we remember it.
Yeah, we do remember it.
We remember it. A lot more than what we do. We think Visa. What colour is that?
I think it's orange, orangey blue, white, something like those. But to your point though, and I think if you're going to use a color set that goes against the grain, just have a really strong reason as to why. And I think talking to innovation and all those things that we just mentioned are great points, because then you will stand out. But you just need to have really strong justification. Also, a board that gets along and agrees to that point of view. Yeah. I've got an example in my own client work. One of my clients said to me before I rebranded them, I said, what colors are you thinking about for your brand? And he said, I like most colors, I just hate pink. And I was like, interesting. Doesn't like pink. We're talking about in the medical space here. And I was like, okay, let's just see. So I went back to him with a palette that I thought he might like, but I also went back to him with one that was pink and heavy navy to complement the pink, opposite end of the color wheel, complementary colors and whatnot. And he loved it. And suddenly he's pink everywhere. So it just goes to show
context, right?
Context matters. It just goes to show you though that not all colors need to align to a preconceived idea.
That's right.
You can go outside of that if you've got a strong enough reason and a strong enough example of it in context to prove that. That's where mock-ups come in so handy, right?
Yeah,
You say this is what it
exactly.
looks like here, this is what it looks like here, this is on the outside of your Lamborghini, it's just going to look like, you show them in context and they go, wow, you showed me, is this, what's the rule here? It's not peak end, it's something else. When you show them the ideal state, you're showing them ideal state.
Yeah.
What does it look
Yeah,
like
or
when
what's
I'm
the
out
future
there
state, yeah.
performing in market? And you give them that,
Yeah.
and no doubt that's what happened to MasterCard.
Yeah.
And suddenly you can see yourself wearing the shoes.
But also, and I work heavily with archetypes. So when I work in the branding psychology space, I will always use the Jungian, so for Carl Jung, the archetypes. And another outlier too, because red, warning, warning, and danger and risk. However, look at Lego. So Lego and McDonald's. So red is often used in what we call the creator space. So the archetypes, there are 12 archetypes that we are categorized depending on certain businesses and outcomes and audience and target audience. And often as a creator, that is the name of this particular archetype, is very bright and bold colours.
Yeah.
And one of them is the pink of the bright pink with me. I mean, my secondary archetype is a creator, which is why, Clint, you used all my colours in building and designing my website. That's why it's got a significant presence, because of the creator archetype that I am. But if you look at Lego, going back to the red, Lego's red, McDonald's is red. That's because they are creator archetypes. So it's used in the right context.
Yep.
This is not around danger. This is around being, fun and, yummy food. Well, that's what McDonald's technically, is around, is fast food.
Ask my kids, they agree.
Yeah. There's Ronald McDonald. Like there's a childhood there's a novelty around these particular brands where red has a presence and should have a presence. Same with Lego, but there's a lot of other industries and other corporate identities that you should stay away from that.
Yeah.
So again, it is very context driven, and it's what is the image that you're trying to create by using a certain color.
It's interesting around archetypes. I'm not going to go into this, but I'm going to challenge you on those in a coming episode. We're going to talk about archetypes because I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of talk about them and their relevancy now in market. So we can save that for another episode. Stay tuned. Yeah. So let's now talk about where color changes action. So color can influence what people notice, trust, avoid, click. And we kind of mentioned this before with our own website using coral as the call to action color, but only when it's used with intent. It has to be used with intent. Let's just talk about now how color influences action on websites and digital products. Right, as we mentioned before, it creates visual hierarchy. It tells people what's clickable and important, and it makes CTAs or call to actions feel more obvious. There's a really good example of this that happened with Amazon. So they changed their call to action button to orange. And when they did, they saw an increase of conversion by 23% just by changing it to orange. Significant.
Yeah.
CDAs need enough contrast to stand out, but also they need to be, and this is why when we're designing design systems, it's so important to have a primary, secondary, and tertiary call to action that we don't stray from. Those call to actions are always the same across the entire experience for a very good reason, right? And talking about the science behind it, what's your take on the why behind that is so important?
Again, it comes down to shortcuts. So if we are creating lots of call to actions, which often we create too many, right? So there's too many call to actions, and then we put different colors on it. What do we want the user to do? So we work in patterns. The brain loves patterns. The brain loves shortcuts. So it often wants to be told what to do, what to click.
Yeah.
So if we've got a particular call to action that's a certain color, we know that following that pattern, that's what we're asking it to do. We've got to click here. We've got to click there. But if we start muddying the waters and creating complexity around our CTAs by changing, and it's not only just color, it can also be the action that you ask. Learn more, click here.
The language
appointment,
around it.
yeah. So it's also the text. The color is the direction, is that it gives immediate direction.
I speed to color. Yep.
That's right. So it will go, brain will look at the color and go, aha, that's what I need to do. The secondary action is reading it and what it's asking me to do. If they don't match, that actually causes way too much or a conflict of information. You know, a
Mental
conflict
gymnastics,
of,
maybe?
mental gymnastics, absolutely. Yeah, I like that, mental gymnastics. That's a great way to do it. So what do? We do nothing.
We do nothing.
We do nothing because it's too hard.
Yeah.
And often people use colour to stand out. Well, if we create more colour and if we use more colour, it's prettier, it's more attractive, it's salient, it sticks out, using the isolation effect where when something stands out more, we tend to gravitate towards it. You're actually not. Colour needs to be used really strategically because we respond so quickly to colour. So we actually want to keep it consistent. We want to create these shortcuts, reduce the load. We don't want to do a cartwheel. All we want to do is put one foot in front of the other, and we can easily follow that pattern by creating consistent colour for an action that we are asking our consumers to do.
It's that old adage, if everything stands out, nothing stands out.
That's right. What do you call it? Rainbow of colours or something?
The rainbow colours. If there's a room full of clowns and you're asking which clown stands out.
I mean,
they're all clowns.
They're all clowns. They're all colours. So what do? Go, there's a bunch of clowns. I'm going to walk away.
Yeah.
We're not going to gravitate towards anything.
I think, though, the rainbow effect happened in early website design back in early 2000s when that was often asked by many clients that I had when I was working for agency was, can we add some more colours? We just need more colours because similar here. We want to stand out. But nowadays we don't see that.
No.
I think we've come around to the idea that less is more and that some primary colour focus used across the board is going to get you a better conversion. And also, we're way more adverse now to, using overkill with colour.
But also, we've also got the tools. We can see what happens to the brain and the response when we are flooding the brain with different colours that we can't actually focus on anything.
That's right.
So we can see the brain activity, and that's what happens. So when we have a consistent colour that is memorable, that is aligned, it's synchronous with a brand or with an identity, it's easy to make a decision. It's much more comfortable for the consumer. They will go ahead and take action. So the call to action, the colour is really important, and it needs to be consistent with what you are asking someone to do.
And context before matters so much. And I know we just mentioned that colour to draw eye to the call to action is important, but equally the message on that button is so important. As an example, could you imagine it's cancel button red, but you had proceed written on the button. It's red and it's proceed. You'd be like, that looks like a mistake. Like, what's wrong? Like, why is it red? Like, it would be a real mental gymnastics.
100%. And also, another thing is grey. Grey is an interesting colour. Do you use grey much?
It means disabled. Unavailable.
Yes.
Can't be clicked. Yes.
Yeah, not available, none left, sold out, not working. So where grey can often be a really lovely, complementary cut, depending on the shade, obviously. Now we associate a behaviour with grey.
Yeah. Don't click this.
Won't
happen.
Or it won't work even if you try to click it.
Yeah.
So, and often I see buttons with that when I do some website audits, the behavioural science audits, I will look at it and they'll go, because I think a default is when you create these, forms is often grey. And it's like, no. Remove. It needs to be a colour. There needs to be a colour to evoke a trigger or a behaviour for someone to make a decision to do something. Grey, they're going to go, I'm not going to waste my time.
Can't touch that because it's grey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Let's now move on to, as a business, how to use colour properly. What should businesses stop doing when choosing colour?
They need to stop choosing the colour that they like. I'm not saying choose a colour that you hate either. We don't want that. But it's choose it for the purpose. So what is it that you want people to do? How do you want to be represented in your industry? How do you want to be seen by your peers and by your consumers? How does it reflect what you do within your business? That's what you should be concentrating on. Now, obviously you want to love the colour and you want to feel proud of the colour, but it's important to represent what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if grey is your favourite colour for some reason,
so sorry for you.
I apologise right now. We're not using it.
We're not grey of being anyone's favourite colour, though. That would be an interesting outlier.
Wouldn't it just?
Yep.
And the other thing is to don't do what everyone else does. So even though that needs, it's not about, your competitors are this. I mean, if you look at my competitor, I mean, no one's going to be pink and aqua. I mean, I was talking with a client on Monday. I think I was telling you the story. And for you guys that know so we're not talking neurodesign here. We're talking Leanne Elledge Consulting and obviously with Incept with Clint. But if you go to Leanne Elledge Consulting, and there's this bright pink and blue. And a client on Monday, someone said, "Oh, look, Leanne's branding is pink and blue." And someone actually said, "It's turquoise or aqua blue." They even knew that it wasn't
the hue.
just a normal, basic, typical blue that you see every day. The hue of the
And you
of the
specifically
blue.
which blue.
And I'm like, you've made it. When your client is starting to actually give a category to the actual colour. So, but also we don't, and just look at our branding. It's not what everyone else does. Now, again, it needs to be sensible within the industry and what you're doing, but don't copy what your competitors do.
Yeah.
You want to showcase yourself as doing something different. So does your branding.
It's interesting you mentioned that brand recall on your brand, which isn't one of the big brands. It's big, but it's not like McDonald's big.
Not yet.
Ferrari red is a thing. Everyone knows Tiffany blue is a colour.
Yes.
But for someone to pick up that was a specific colour, that's pretty good brand recall.
I was very impressed. And it was, no offence, there was actually a guy.
There you go.
It was a male. It wasn't even a female. So you've made it when you've got a
best colorists in the world, a male
client. A male client recall. But it just goes to show how important. And I mean, at the moral of the story is just goes to show how important having that brand within your industry and people recognizing you and your corporate identity and the colours signifies what you do.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we've just said what they should stop doing.
Yeah.
What should they do instead?
Well, also another thing to stop doing is, and Clint, you're probably better at explaining this than me, but if you've got, 3 colours within your palette, use them all the same. There should be something that is used more. So there should be a significant colour, then one that, complements that, and then a tertiary colour that is the accent colour that you use a little bit of.
Generally, we just assign rules to the colour. What's their job? So if you've got black, red, and grey in your colour palette, what job is black supposed to do? What job is red supposed to do? Okay, let's define those. And if you give them a task, therefore it's harder to break those rules when it comes to a website. You're going through your site design and you got headlines and you go, okay, well, let's make a rule. All headlines are black. Great. Let's make a rule. All call to action buttons are now red from the palette. Great. And so we now are using rules against everything. I think that's the best way to use your palette. Yeah. Unfortunately, when brand agencies come up with palettes, quite often they're not thought through all the way down the line to online interface design, which is fine. They're just generally a starting point.
Right.
And then it comes up to the job of the designer involved in creating the website experience to then expand on that palette or tweak the palette, and which is absolutely fine and expected. Brand guidelines are guidelines. They're not written in stone and to never be changed. They are literally the starting point. And most clients that I work with would say, oh, well, yes, let's evolve it. Let's feel free to massage and get it moving into a position where now we can roll this out across everything. Because the last thing they want is to be hamstrung by a guideline that was created very early on in the branding exercise. Yeah.
My pink got brighter as I've moved on.
Did it?
Yeah, actually it did.
Really?
If you go back to, I'll send you some, if you go back to some of the previous colours,
I think I tweaked that.
That bright pink, which I call the Valentino pink because that's what the fashion house Valentino a couple of years ago had all the couture suits and dresses was this particular hot pink, and so I could call it Valentino pink. Not that I copied that, but my pink
influenced by.
Oh, maybe, but I do love that pink. But it was a lot softer and it got deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you came up with that Valentino pink.
Yeah,
what I call
brightened it up a bit.
Brightened it up, which now everyone knows is my pink.
That's it.
Yeah,
it's the Leanne Elledge pink.
Pink, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a question here around how many colours should a brand really use?
That's a good question.
Something that, is often asked, and the answer is simple. Enough for flexibility, but not to confuse, right? So like I say, giving every colour a job. If it's in the colour wheel that you've got and there's no other purpose for it other than, we might use it sometimes as a background color. Like, it's probably not a strong enough reason to use that color in your brand identity. So some brands have 3, some have 2, and then they have 2 secondary colors. It all depends on the brand. It can't be answered with a generic answer. It's very much bespoke to the brand.
Would 10 colors be too much?
Not for a clown school or a rainbow factory. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. For candy? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But again, even if it was for a candy brand, the candy brand probably wouldn't use all those colors either.
Yeah.
Because all those colors don't stand out, as we've just spoken about.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I have seen palettes with like 10 or more colors. I use
really?
a little bit of it. Yeah, I use a little bit of each of these.
Yeah. Ugh.
I'm like, okay, no,
can't do
we
that.
need to do something about that. Yeah.
Yep. Too many colors can create noise and create confusion and weaken recognition, in fact.
Yeah.
You don't become known for anything. You think Tiffany would be known for Tiffany blue if it had 12 colors in their palette. They just wouldn't be known for that. So yeah, less is more.
There was an April Fool's joke a couple of years ago. Oh, phenomenal marketing. So the marketing team, and it was only later that people realised it was an April Fool's joke. It was done so well that they thought that it was okay, and they changed everything to yellow.
Right.
And they said, we have now rebranded to Tiffany Yellow. And it was so well done. They showed the boxes that were now Tiffany Yellow. They showed, I think on Fifth Avenue, the store with the colours of the yellow, obviously. It was phenomenal. And then the next day or 2 days later was like, only joking, April Fools. It was done so well. But also the credibility of the brand. It's like, well, unless you're at Tiffany's, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Would they have, it's interesting, would they have lost sales? I reckon yes.
You think?
Absolutely.
In that brief window?
Absolutely.
As opposed to the awareness and the sales they would have got from that renewed interest?
100% they would have, because it's like, well, what's
Dangerous
the reasoning? Dangerous activity. What's the reason behind it? Why did you think you do it? I mean, Tiffany can do whatever they want, but what, their reputation, but why would you change? It starts bringing uncertainty into when you start.
Trust.
Yes. So uncertainty, trust. Why was the blue not good enough? Everything is blue.
Backfire.
But the blue boxes, people keep their blue boxes, the Tiffany blue. The restaurant, the cafe. When we were in New York, we went. It's the blue box cafe. So everything around that. So yes, very interesting. And then then they go, only joking, back to the blue, and everyone's like, oh, thank God for that. Yeah, the relief.
The relief, right. Let's talk about where businesses get colour wrong in marketing materials, and you just kind of mentioned one there with Tiffany, overusing accent colours, right? So just swathes of their primary colours, like, we're blue, so let's make everything blue. It just doesn't work that way. Making calls to action blend into the brand palette. So, even though you've got a brand palette in one area, using a call to action that is part of the brand palette is not always the way to go. Not always. Like I mentioned, black and red before, making all your buttons red probably won't work for you because of looks like a cancel button, or it looks dangerous, or it looks like I shouldn't press that. It's red.
Isn't that interesting though? I just thought about this, just popped into my head now. The subscribe button, like for YouTube, I guess because it's a branding of YouTube, is red.
Yeah.
But because it goes with the branding, the identity of the business.
You associate it.
You associate it with, So it's not a danger. It's actually like, pick me, subscribe. But often, like on YouTube, it's, click the subscribe and it's actually red.
Yeah.
But
don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe.
On YouTube. We're on YouTube.
But I think because it's associated with the brand.
We see it used in marketing materials. Poor contrast with text is a big one, right? So quite often brands will go, oh, look, we need at all costs to get our brand colours in there, and then we'll just put text on top of that brand colour, and then now you can't read it. So you've now cost a sale and legibility and readability just by the very fact you wanted to inject your brand colour. That's a big one. Inconsistency is probably the largest one I see, and this is where it's really important to have a brand guardian or have a designer on hand that can assist with making sure, and this happens after brands are created, visual identity in particular is created, brand guidelines are created, and it kind of stops there, the designer's paid and off they go into the sunset, and suddenly now it's the business's problem to now roll that out across materials, and it falls over unless there is a brand guardian on the client side looking after that
I
brand.
like that, brand guardian.
Or the designer's re-engaged to say, we're going to create some marketing materials. How should this work? Or we're going to do a letterhead. How should this work? A letterhead, who does letterheads anymore? Business cards even aren't as common. Or online ads, how are they supposed to look? All that power being put into the business with a new brand, it can really backfire. So inconsistency, we see a lot of that. So recommend the brand guardian.
Yep.
And the final one is using color to decorate rather than guide, right? So decoration is never a good idea when it comes to marketing and communications. It should always be guiding an action, whether it's drawing attention to a headline or whether it's creating a clear path to call to action. Other than that, it's pure decoration. It needs to have a really good reason for being there on a piece of communication. Mm-hmm. And that's all I got to say on that.
It's great. Great.
All right.
Remember your brand guardian. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Here's the shift. Color isn't taste, decoration, or committee preference. Color is a signal. It tells people what to feel, what to trust, what to notice, and what to do next. So the better question isn't, what color do we like? The better question is, what behavior do we need this color to support? One action for the listener out there this week: open your website or most important sales asset, look at the colors, ask what each one is doing. If a color does not guide attention, create trust, or support an action, it's probably just noise. That's Think Shift. I'm Clint.
I'm Leanne.
One idea, one shift in round about 30 minutes. If this episode has changed how you think, please send it to someone who makes decisions for a living.
And follow Think Shift on all the socials. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what shift is coming up next week.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
This is a March Made Media production.